You start.
So we met in college. He was actually dating someone and I was actually engaged when we met. I had been with a guy for 3.5 years, and my plan was not to go to college and get married. And my dad was like, no, you're going to 1 year of college at least, and his little plan worked because I ended up loving college and wanting to stay for 4 years. So within, well, like the first week of classes, I met John. I actually, if you know John at all, you know he's very boisterous. So I actually heard him before I saw him. We were both in band. I sat up front playing flute, and I heard this loud person behind me, and I'm like, who is that? And it was this one. So anyways, we met, we became friends, and then the first break that we had was over Thanksgiving break, and I went home, and something happened. Anyways, I ended up breaking up with my fiance. He waited like a whole 2 weeks.
No.
No?
It's about 4 days.
Oh, he asked me out on a date. 6 months later, we were engaged. We've been married 31 years, so it worked. But
It
yeah,
did.
so that's.
So here's the thing. I knew I stood no shot. Let's just say I knew I had no shot. So I figured I got her on the rebound, I'll still get her, right? Okay? So I knew I get her on the rebound, I'll get it. So I realized she learned to love me. And it helped that her fiance's name was John as well. So if she's kissing me going, oh John, I'm just assuming it's me, realizing it's probably not, but I'm okay with that, right? So I'm okay with that. So we dated about 2 years. I hated dating. I hated the dating. I hated dating. We both didn't like dating that much. Even each other, we didn't like dating each other that much. It was just kind of a pain. We didn't think there was a lot of pressure. There was just a lot of expectations that neither one of us. I don't know why you just laughed, but I'll be fine that later. So we didn't really like dating that much. So it wasn't this. Oh, dating was awesome. It was okay. So just being honest, the dating scene for us. We liked each other, but we didn't like the you know what I mean, the games that you play and all of that crap that goes with the dating scene. We didn't really like it. So we've been married 31 years. Kids?
Yep. So we have 3 kids. 2 are biological, and then we adopted a girl out of foster care when she was in 8th grade. So we kind of did it backwards. We didn't do the baby. We went for the teenager. And let's see.
Grandkid.
1 grandbaby. Yep. And that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so our kids are 27, 2 27-year-olds and a 25-year-old. So we have been married, we've had 30 wonderful years of marriage and one that sucked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had, and honestly, nothing really, it was just more the, kind of the dating stuff, just typical kids and communication, and had to kind of work through that. So, let me ask you this first. What is the first thing when you think of dating, good or bad, what's the first thing you think of? Come on, this is, wow. Oh my God, that's a hard question. Adam, first thing you think of?
What do you think me?
Because I think you had your hand raised.
No, what? I mean,
Yes,
my first thing was just boys. Like when you said we're dating, I was thinking boys.
So, okay.
Like you date.
Boys.
Yeah, you are.
What else? Thank you, Abby, for being, yeah, thank you. What else? What do you think of when you think of dating? Are you raising your hand or are you scratching that? What do you think? This is not hard question!
Declan says spending.
Spending, yeah. That's a good one. That's very good, Declan. Thank you, Declan. Is that true, Declan? Is that really your answer, or is that Dana's answer for you? All right. Go ahead.
Movies were like dating completely perfect, and then like walking out there, like on the football field holding hands, and everyone else is like, oh my gosh, that's cute.
So, false reality is what I think. That's a good one. So, Holly, dating for you. First thing, before you met Mr. Wright over there, what was the first thing you thought of when you thought of dating?
Yeah, I think honestly, heartbreak.
Okay? Yeah, heartbreak, disaster. Camille.
Speed dating.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. On that note,
That was not a thing.
yeah, they didn't have. Okay, so I'm gonna, on speed dating fun, and that's like an awesome segue. So, Ben, so a lot of times when people think of dating, here's what they think of. So, watch this. A little grainy, but
Mom, this it? Sorry.
Oh, my name, I'm Louis Colton, but you call me Barbecue Lou. I got a thing for barbecue ribs.
I'm Jeff Castle.
Is it a camera?
I'm Jeff Castle.
Some cook?
Oh, John, it's you.
Is it cook? I am a limousine driver, and I'm here because you wanted to help me to find maybe a future wife.
Originally from the East Coast, and I've been out in Southern California for a number of years. And I like bowling and roller skating, and of course women like dance, disco.
I go to clubs, let the groove on. That's kind of my life.
You know, I'm a real static Italian kind of guy. I like to watch wrestling, ballet, orchestra, theater. I like to walk the beach, nature.
I'm a used car guy. You guys have a sprint car out there? Hello, America. Well, I've never done this before, and it's, whoo!
And what are you looking for in a woman?
Well, you know, I'm sick of playing the field. I don't need to date everything that
Is it a
moves.
camera?
I'm sick of playing the field, and I don't need to date everything that moves.
I'm looking for somebody that's caring and kind. Looks aren't that important anymore.
So I want her to be tall.
Good size, but not that way good, this way good. I don't like one that just gets down and bold. You know, I only need one you. Whew, I feel sweat when I'm burning. Whew. I like the woman with the all wide side, you know, I mean, open-minded. It's also someone who's openly sexual.
And I want her to be funny, you see?
A lot of times I'll just stay up, you know, late at night and watch you sleep.
I fit into the speed dating. I was like, oh man, that's creepy. So, would you say there's a lot of pressure in dating? Either to date or once you're dating, the pressure's there. So, do you? So a little bit, Camille. You're going like this.
No, that was just me.
Okay.
Wait, my turn.
Go, Camille.
I just think when I think of dating, I think it's more like it's less pressure than being in a relationship. Because I think of those as two separate things, right? Dating and being in a relationship. So I think of dating as ideally low pressure.
Okay. In a relationship, high pressure.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I think the opposite, I think, a little bit for me, because when you're dating, like going out on dates, so it's like, okay, you have to look nice, you have to eat right, and you have to, you know, say all the right things. It's a lot of like very direct communication, but like when you're in a relationship, you can kind of like do more things, and I think there's less pressure to like keep up appearances,
So you don't care what you look like.
obviously.
No, I didn't say that. You said. I'm repeating what you said. So once you're in a relationship, you don't care quite as much.
Right, like they already said, okay, I want to be with you.
Okay. Good. Good.
So if I'm going to think about this from like the side I normally do, I'm normally the one handling my friends' dating problems while they get the fun stuff like the actual boyfriend.
Yeah.
I will say, for me dealing with all the problems, I know there are a lot of problems.
Okay. There is. Anybody else? Pressure in, you can say dating or relationship, I don't care what it is, Brady.
Not as much pressure in dating kind of thing. I'm kind of chill with it, so I'm like, you know what? We're friends, like we're best friends, we like each other, we're dating, cool.
Okay.
Like that's,
Do you ever feel pressure to have to act a certain way or not at all? Once you're in that relationship.
no, because I feel like once you're in that relationship, you're like dating, then I feel like that wall should already.
So it's, the pressure for you would say is more before the dating than after?
Probably,
Okay.
but I would try not to like raise a wall of like who I am,
Okay.
just because I don't want them to like somebody that's not
That's
actually.
me. Okay. So Dana, did you feel pressure when you were in, not that you went on any dates in high school, I know, but when you were in college, did you feel pressure?
So do you.
Yeah, I'm
You're
sorry.
the only one.
And I don't even know what. So what, did you feel pressure in college or in high school or whatever you were dating? Did you feel the pressure?
Yeah, I think still, yeah. I will say when the relationships weren't with healthy people, I definitely felt more pressure.
Okay.
So, but then when I will say when I met Christina, things were obviously different. And it was low pressure when we were together, but it was also high pressure because I knew her background and I knew my background and knew how different they were in a sense. And so there was a little bit of pressure there just because conversation with her family and living up to their expectations to some extent. So
Yeah, I get that. So what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight is dating and trying to figure out what does that look like for not just high school students, but what should dating look like that is going to be honoring to God and one that doesn't suck. I don't know any other way to say it, but you have one that's going to honor God and that doesn't have to suck. So here's what we kind of came up with. There's like 4 areas that I would say that we would say that's a dating life that would honor God. The first one is to prioritize it. And this is kind of basic, that some of you guys have heard this, but it really, to prioritize your dating life is to put Jesus first. It doesn't matter, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but it doesn't change. It doesn't matter if you're married or if you're single. But your dating and married life, Jesus has to be your priority. I think too often in dating and even in marriage, believe it or not, that you make that other person your idol. And realizing that they are number one instead of your walk with Jesus. I heard a great quote, I want to read this. It says, "This is the overriding principle which must govern every relationship. Loving Jesus first and foremost means seeking Him above all else and obeying His commands above all else. To love Jesus is to obey Jesus. Once this is firmly set in place for both individuals in the relationship, many of the other details will fall into place. Obedience to Jesus is the filter through which every action must pass." And then in John 14:15 it says, "If you love me, you're gonna follow my commandments." And I would say that is probably the number one priority in dating. And I don't care if you're dating in high school, I don't care if you're dating in college, I don't care if you're married. The filter has to be that.
Another important thing is to know your own self-worth. Do not look to other people to give you your self-worth and your acceptance. Just coming from a woman, every single woman I know has issues with self-esteem. Every one of them. Whether they're gorgeous or they lack in whatever area, every single one of them does. So, my point is, we all struggle with it. You're not the only one. You cannot look to a man to give you your self-worth. That has to come from God.
And I would say when we were dating, that was probably the area that I probably struggled with the most, because I wrestled a little bit with that, realizing wanting a woman to validate me and like I am worth to be going out with.
Well, especially if there's like problems at home and you don't have maybe a great relationship with your parents, or there's issues at home, then you're looking for, and you're not getting the love that you want. It's easy to go to someone else and want to get that love from them. It's very natural, but you have to go to God for your acceptance first.
And I wanted a woman to think I was good looking, right? I wanted a woman to feel that I was attractive. And I want to be it. And that was hard for me. It really was, honestly. That's something that I wrestled with before marriage. I joke about that. I mean, Michelle is out of my league, absolutely. But I joked about a little bit of. I would agree. And she was way out of my league, but for me, that wasn't why I felt unworthy. It was just more of wanting someone else to validate who it was, if that makes sense. So what did we do before we got married to prioritize Jesus? Do you remember that part of that? That was a long time ago.
I remember we were both in college, we were both in a Bible study together. Actually, it was a group of college kids. We did our own Bible study. We did that. We prayed together. We did do devotions together. We did our own.
We helped each other accountable
Yeah.
on not being put in situations, which you talked about a little bit. And in our but I would say this, in our married life, we do the same thing.
Yeah, we still like pray together every night. We do our own devotions, but we do a couples devotions off of the YouVersion app, and we hold each other accountable by asking if we're doing it or what we're doing. Yeah.
So I like to pick out the devotions. This was the last devotions I picked up. This is my favorite one we've
It's
ever
lame.
done. This
Yeah.
is the best devotions
Oh my God.
we've ever done. And I'm not kidding, it was my favorite. This is the devotion I picked out. Loving your husband well.
Really?
It was a great one. Wasn't it good? Oh man, it was a good one. There were so many things you learned. That was our devotion. But anyway, we tried to find devotions that we do together. So there's things as a couple that we still, our relationship with Jesus is still our first priority. Whether you're dating, whether you're married, it doesn't matter. It sounds like it's cliche, but it truly is for us. That has to be your first priority. The second one for us, besides prioritizing Jesus, is date with a purpose. And I can't stress this enough. So here's one perspective on that. You want to show it? Yeah? Oh yeah. Anytime would be nice. I clicked it first.
But it's true. I mean, I got 3 boys and a girl. Boys and girls are totally different. My boys are just violent. Girls are just dance everywhere. Make a bowl of cereal. They're adorable. Boys are violent, man. Even when a boy likes a girl, he's violent. You ever see a little boy at a public pool? He likes a girl, he's like dunking her under, sticking her head in the filter. Oh, yeah. You are the one for me, sweetie. You ever see a little boy schmitten with a girl? It's hilarious. He's like, look at her, she's amazing. I must have her in my life. She is my day, she is my night, she is my flower. I must prove my love for her and have her forever. So with all my heart and with all my soul and with all my might, I shall throw this rock at her. And as the blood trickles down her temples, she will know the depths of my affection. If she survives, we will be wed. Go! Find your mark, little pebble. Find your mark.
So, perspective and purpose. That's one purpose of dating. So how do you date with a purpose? I really do believe in school, in high school, there's a purpose of dating. I really do. And one of it is, honestly, to get to know them. I think we put so much flippant pressure on ourselves when we date. I think there's so much pressure that we put on, and I think we make it more complicated than it should. So before we got married, what we did, we tried to find things that we did in groups, typically groups, but our purpose of dating, honestly, was to get to know each other. That's what it is.
Yeah, that was back in the day when there was roller skating, like
Yeah.
4 wheels, not
Yeah,
rollerblading. Yeah, we didn't have rollerblading. We went to movies together, big groups. What else did we do? Oh, like if there's a football game, we would all get in the lounge and watch a football game or play board games and stuff. We did that kind of stuff in groups.
But the purpose of dating, I think, this is where you guys might disagree with me on this, but I'm right, is the purpose of dating in high school, I think, is one thing. To have fun and get to know each other. That's the purpose. I think to make it more than it is, I think is putting way too much pressure on what dating is supposed to be. In college, I think it changes. So a lot of you guys are graduating, I will say, when you get to college, dating changes. Would you agree, Holly? Dana? Yeah. Christine, do you agree? Speak. No? Yeah, a little bit? Well, you're getting engaged, so you better hope it changes, right? You better hope so. Wow. You don't seem very confident there. Okay, it changes. And here's what I mean by this. In college, the purpose of dating changes. Here's what the purpose in college is, for the most part. It's to possibly find someone you might marry. Because I don't waste my time. I never wasted my time. You don't date someone you're not going to marry in college. But in high school, I really honestly believe this. The purpose of dating should be for fun and to get to know the other person. So in marriage, so what do you do in marriage? In marriage, it goes back to the first priority for us, which is what? For fun and get to know each other. So for us, we still date. Honestly, we dated, for the 31 years we've been married, we have dated once a week for almost every week in our 31 years of marriage. When we had kids, we got a babysitter, we dated all the time.
And part of it is, fast forward eventually when you do have kids, so many couples pour everything into their kids and put them as their number one priority. And then the kids grow up, they move out, and they don't have a clue who the person that they married was anymore because they don't do anything together. So for us, we just knew it was important for us to pour into each other all the time because eventually the kids do leave and you still want to have a thriving marriage, which will not happen if you don't pour into your spouse.
So we talk about putting our best foot forward when you're dating. And I think some of you guys talked about this, but you want to talk about it?
Right. So one thing that stands out to me, and I'm sure I don't know if it was whoever taught me this, but when you're dating, and I think Abby, you were talking about it, like you feel the pressure to like, you want to look nice, you have to put your best foot forward. You're trying to impress that person, you're trying to snag them maybe or whatever. So I just want to, especially girls, well, it's for everybody, but really look at the person you're dating, especially like when you're in the college stage and you're kind of looking for a spouse. What you're seeing during your dating period is the best. Okay, now some people will think, well, that little thing that they do really irks me, but once we get married, it'll change. Yeah, it's going to change. It's going to go way worse. It will never get better. So if you see that person treating you poorly, not all the time, but like here and there doing digs at you, talking down to you, treating you other than a queen for a woman, like I think you should be treated like a queen. If they're not doing that, you catch that early because it will only get worse. I promise you that. You are not going to change anybody. You will not. So
whatever you do in dating, this is the truth. If you're doing it in dating, I promise you this. As it gets more, you're on your best behavior. Once you,
snag them,
you know, whatever. When I got married, what I did in dating, if I had these bad habits in dating, you can guarantee it I have when I'm married.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, now I'm going to be this changed person, right? So you can't do that. So when I dated Michelle, I never once burped in front of her, farted in front of her. I do that all the time now, but hell, listen, let me explain this. But I never did that when we were dating.
Until the day before we got married.
That was an accident.
Hello.
Yeah, I should have. But I never did because I felt like I wanted to put my best foot forward. You're putting your best foot forward in your dating. What's the purpose of dating? Get to know them. You put your best foot forward with both sides. If you're seeing any flags, I'm telling you, get out. This is not what you think it is. You put your best foot forward. So we'll get into that in a second. So anyway, so for both of us, the purpose is getting to know each other. So even and we're married right now, we still date weekly. We still go out, and there are a lot of times we have no money. We split a cup of coffee. We still go out, and we did that. But we also would get away to get to know each other. We do it. Been married 31 years. We still do that. The third one, which I think is probably one of the most critical ones, is laughter and fun. Again, I think we put so much pressure on dating to be this serious thing, and I think God intended relationships to be filled with laughter and to be filled with fun. I really do. So, I love this question. So what attracted you to me? first.
So remember I told you I heard him before I saw him, right? So he was really loud and boisterous. I was painfully shy my whole life up into college until I met, well, when I met him actually, painfully shy. And what attracted me was we would be in the student center and there'd be people all over and he could just go around and talk to whoever. Like, just go to people I didn't know and just start talking to them. I'm like, there's no way I could ever do that. I'm way, way, way too shy. So that attracted me that he had this ability to do that. And then I had to learn how to do that.
And for me, it was Michelle's smile and her laughter. I think that was for both of us, wasn't it? It was the laughter and the smile. For us, what attracted to each other really was the element of laughter. I think I said that we make dating this super intense and serious thing. And it's not supposed to be. I'm going to say having fun in dating doesn't have to be about sex or making out. It doesn't have to be. I think dating can be this fun fill of laughter that we're supposed to have. So I will always, daily, many times a day, will try to get Michelle to laugh.
Or drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, examples?
So, one thing that we enjoy doing together is we go on cruises and we go dancing at night, and when the slow dances are on and we're out there, this song comes on and he'll be singing all the words, but completely wrong. He changes all the words and then I just start laughing in the middle of them. Everyone else is all like romantic and gooey and I'm howling out in the middle of the dance floor. So we have fun doing that. He also, like, I'm OCD with things at home. I like things picked up, cupboards, doors, drawers, everything shut so it looks neat. And he'll go around and like be talking and open all the doors and just leave them open. I'm like, and I go around and shut them all. And then 20 minutes later he goes and opens them all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're killing me here.
I'll sit next to her and I'll text her.
Oh yeah, he'll text me goofy texts, like sitting right in the same
Or
room.
very inappropriate text.
Well, there's that,
I will,
yeah.
so I'll text her and I'll say, want to get ... all the time. And it's supposed to be funny, it's supposed to want to get naked. And so what I do is I take that.
We can be in small group,
We
like
are.
across the room, and I'm like,
And so
oh,
I'll
God.
text her
Oh my
just to be
gosh,
funny,
yeah.
say, hey, want to get ... in case someone else sees my text, right? Because if anybody gets my phone, then I'm in trouble, so I don't always see that, right? So I just say, want to get ... And I've actually gotten, I'm worried about, I'll send it to her in the middle of the day, just to get her to laugh.
Oh, he's terrible.
Because laughter's healing, right? Laughter is healing. Again, I will always try to find things to get Michelle to laugh. There's so many studies, so many statistics out there that say the more you laugh, how laughter's healing, laughter is healthy, laughter is what God intended us to be. We're too uptight. We're too uptight in our dating lives. It's supposed to be fun, guys. It's supposed to be a joy. And that's how God intended this. Michelle is the same way. Like, there was a time recently, not that long ago, I don't have the spiritual gift of picking up after myself, so I just don't. And so Michelle, there was some mayo that I had put on the counter and left. It was garbage I left on the counter. And so Michelle, being the amazing woman she was, said to me,
So instead of getting mad about it, or whatever, so I'm like, okay, this is just irritating. It's stupid. I know it's stupid and it shouldn't irritate me, but I'm like, oh my gosh, just take me this stupid garbage. So I see this garbage on the counter, and I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, what? I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, what? And I'm like, we've been in our house 12 years. I'm like, for 12 years, I've actually walked across the kitchen, opened this drawer, and put the garbage in there. Like, I had no idea we had a second garbage right here on the counter. He's like, you suck. So then I left it, and then a couple hours later, whatever, he was doing some stuff on his computer. He's like, can you do me a favor and throw this away? I'm like, sure. So I just dropped it on the counter. He's like, oh my gosh, you suck. But he did throw it away, and he's not put the garbage there again. So
Yeah.
there you go. It worked.
There was a time that we got a little tip in the morning. I don't remember what it was
That was a
about.
long time ago.
It wasn't that long. It was what,
12 years ago.
no, it was like 2-3 years ago. And I must have done something. I'm sure I did something wrong. I have no idea. And so Michelle made me toast. And And if you've been in our house, we have an island that's longer than the ping pong table. And she took the toast. This is what she did. She took the toast and she flung it across the table. This is the best part. It went across the table and landed upside down, peanut butter and all. And again, to get her to laugh, because
You didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything. I looked at her
You
and
picked it up and ate it.
ate it and left. Didn't say a word.
Yeah. I forgot about
Oh, I didn't.
it. It wasn't a glass. That
No, it was not. Guys, one of the priorities in marriage, one of the priorities in dating is laughter. I'm telling you, laughter's healing. Don't take dating so seriously, please. It's supposed to be filled with joy. One of my favorite pictures of Jesus is him smiling and laughing. If you think the disciples were serious, you don't know them. Look in Scripture. Messed up guys. I mean, you take a look at the disciples, take a look at people that were followers of Jesus. Jesus had a phenomenal sense of humor. And for us, I really believe in dating. That's what it's supposed to be, filled with joy and fun. And I think a lot of you guys, if you talk about heartache, you know that dating isn't always fun, is it? And I'll tell you, the purpose of laughter, the purpose of dating really should be laughter and fun. That's one of the purposes of dating. And don't miss that. Don't miss that. If you date, not at their expense, because I would never put Michelle down or make fun of Michelle in front of others. But I will pull pranks on people all the time. I will pull pranks on to make Michelle laugh, to make Michelle smile. And that's what dating is for, guys, is laughter. So that's it, the three. The last one in dating, and this is one that I'm sure you guys, I've heard you guys have talked about this a little bit, but this isn't just dating, it's in marriage, it's to pursue purity. Scripture talks about 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but a sexual immoral person sins against her own body. Again, this isn't about just dating. It doesn't matter if you're married or dating. If our number one priority is Jesus, then we are to pursue purity. Not just sex, guys, not just with our bodies, but with our thoughts. What we're watching on TV, what we're watching on our phones, and in our dating life. Purity isn't just about not having sex before marriage. Because if you think that's what purity is, you're missing purity. Purity isn't just saying, oh, we can't have sex. We can do everything else, we can have sex. That's not purity. It's about honoring God with our body, with our minds, and our actions. So, men, here's what I'm going to say, real clear on this with men. I do believe, and you can call me old-fashioned, doesn't matter, but I do believe when Scripture talks about in marriage, that a husband's role is to what? If you don't know it, it's to love your wife as Christ loved the church, which means you are to die for her. You are literally to die for her. And so for me, my role is to put my wife first in everything. And in dating, I'd say the same thing. So when I dated Michelle, I put Michelle, I wasn't very good at it early on in marriage. It took a while, but now I am. But I would say early on, when I first met her parents, I watched her dad and he opened the door for for his mom. So I thought, I gotta impress the parents, right? So I started opening the car door and taking and pulling the seat out and helping with all that. And I've done that 33 years later. I still open the door for my wife. It's not a joke. We've been married, I don't know how long, it wasn't that long. And I'm walking into Target, and I realize Michelle's not there. I go back, she's still in the car waiting for me to open the door for me. This has happened a couple times. She's got that point across. My point is, I believe this, guys, I really do. Your job, I won't let anybody date my daughters if they're not opening the car door for them.
Or if they pull up in the driveway and beep the horn.
Yeah.
Hello, get out of the car, meet the parents.
Now, you can say I'm old-fashioned, but here's the thing. I believe Michelle, if she is, but when even dating her, if I'm not putting her first in everything, then the problem I had when we were basically engaged, I should say in that perspective, my role was to die to myself and to serve my wife all the time. And that's my role. 32 years later, my role is to put Michelle first in everything. In everything. So, how did I do that? How have I done that still?
Well, yeah, he gave you the example of the car door. That was one thing he had seen, that my parents were doing, and he was like, oh, I better do that.
Yeah.
one thing, like, we were in a small group together, and he heard, there was a couple, and this was just, they weren't actually addressing it to anyone. The wife just made a comment, and it really, this was sort of a turning point for how he was treating me. And it was just a dumb little thing. But the wife said, my husband always, like when we have a meal or whatever, he always gives me the best piece of meat, the biggest piece of meat. Always. He will always give me the best. And John was sitting there going, oh my gosh, like, I don't do that. Like, I want the best piece. You know what I mean? Like, all of us, we're selfish people. We want the best thing. That's just the way it is. But it really, that little act of unselfishness or whatever, that completely changed the way he started treating me. He felt like crap because he's like, oh my gosh, I never do that. Like, I always want the best one. And someone speaking truth to him without even speaking it to him, if they were just making a comment, it completely changed our relationship because he went from me to how can I serve you? So I just, yeah, that's marriage, but it's also dating. Like you want to find the person who is willing to put you ahead of themselves, and you'll just. That's what I'm saying. Like if you see like little red flags or the way they're treating you, like honestly, get out while you can because it's a huge thing. It's really how someone is treating you is huge. Yeah.
I think we sacrifice in this area in dating when it comes to how we allow other people to treat us. I'm going to put you right now, if you're the butt of the joke, ladies or guys, from the person you're dating,
That's not okay.
dump them now.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Dump them now. Because,
Or
go ahead.
Or if like, let's say they spent money on you, take you out to eat, maybe it's prom or something, and you bought a nice dress, they took you out to eat, they spent all this money on you. If they're expecting sexual favors or whatever in return, absolutely not. That is not, spending money on you does not go with you owe them something, ever. And if they try to tell you that, you get out. That is not okay, ever, yeah.
So we make, and I just want to kind of be real transparent, we make the act of sexual intercourse the issue. We make it, sex is the issue for purity, which a lot of it is, but there's a lot of other things which I think causes impurity. And those say this, it's thoughts, it's what we're watching and seeing. Again, it's a purity issue. Yeah. Here's the problem. Is there pleasure in sex outside of marriage? Yeah, sure there is. But I'd also say, which is why there's a draw, right? There's a draw that whatever the percentage of people who graduate high school have sex, there is that draw. Here's the problem. There is no intimacy in it. And a lot of very little joy. And oftentimes, we've talked about this.
This is guilt, I think, a lot of times too.
Guilt and shame. Purity sets up the stage for intimacy. The intimacy and joy when you're committed to each other for a lifetime, and you can relax and realize that the person you're with is who God designed. So you were talking about setting up standards ahead of time.
Yeah, so I think it's important to set up standards ahead of time. So let's say you're like, okay, when I date someone, I'm only going to hold hands and kiss. Let's say that's where your line is or whatever. You have to establish that ahead of time because if you're in a situation where it's just you two and things start getting out of hand, if you haven't set that up, it will be extremely difficult to stop whatever you're doing and go with that. So the other thing is, like, let's say that was your standard and you're on a date and it went a little bit farther than that, but you stopped it. Then something happened, you guys break up, now you're going to date someone else. Automatically, you're going to start with where you stopped on the other one. So it's not just holding hands or just kissing, whatever else you were doing, that's going to be the new, we're starting here and moving on. So it's very hard to go back to simple.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to get that set in your mind ahead of time, so if you are in a situation, you can stop it then.
So we talked about the whole thing with the intimacy part. So what does sex look like within marriage? It's awesome, right? Right? Yeah, it is. I love having sex with Michelle. Right?
I mean, he does text me.
I do, I text her. But here's what I'm trying to share real honestly. The freedom that we have with each other, the freedom we have is what I'm talking about. Sex is not what you see on TV. If you think it is, it's a load of crap. Sex is not what you see on TV. It is not. And I can see some people shaking their heads who know what I'm... It isn't. It is not. It's so much more than that. From the first time we had sex 31 years ago to now, it's so different than what we ever thought it was. It was intended, here's the thing, guys. Sex was intended to be for a lifetime. It was not ever intended to be this one-time thing. We think sex is this one-time thing and that's it, and that's the pinnacle. That is a lie. Sex is not one night, or 1 hour, or 5 minutes. It's 31 years. And honestly, it's 31 years of trying to figure it out. And trial and error. Hate to tell you, trial and error. Trying to figure out, it's about sacrifice and service. But we make sex this one-time thing. Trust me, it's not. You know what it is? It's security. Realizing that my wife loves me for who I am. Because here's what's going to happen. Things change. What would happen if Michelle became paralyzed or I became paralyzed, we could never have sex? Is that the issue? Is that the answer? Intimacy. What happens when things change in your body? I'm just here to say, do not make the act of sexual intercourse, the act of having sex, we make that being the pinnacle, and that's what it is. And I'm saying sex is for a lifetime. It's not meant to be a one-time thing. Now, I'm gonna put Dana on the spot. You agree with that, Dana? Because you guys have been married for how long?
3 years.
3 years. I didn't know you were that long. So, would you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah. It is a lot of figuring it out. And I mean, something we talked about very openly as a couple is culture does kind of build up this perception of what sex should be, and it's super unhealthy. And honestly, it will lead you to disappointment if that is what you are going and expecting.
That's a great word, Dana. I think our culture says, oh, this is what sex is going to be. For you two guys that are getting married soon, I'm just saying, honestly, it's a lifetime. And do not make it this one time as we make it in high school, because that's the pinnacle. It isn't. So set up from a purity standpoint, I would say pursue purity, not just physical purity, but with your thoughts. And with what you're watching on TV, or now especially with what you're watching on your phones. Because I never dealt with this, back when I was in high school, many, don't shake your head, but yeah, 35 years ago, we didn't have phones. We didn't have internet. So we didn't have quite the temptation. We had temptation, but in a different way. We didn't have what you guys have to access it. And I'm saying we're to pursue purity with our minds, with our thoughts, with what we watch, and our dating life. It's all of that. Purity isn't just about the act of sex, but it's about everything. Again, honoring God. So this is what dating should look like from our opinion. It's number 1, prioritizing Jesus. Number 2, dating with a purpose. Number 3, laugh. Have fun. And lastly, pursue purity. I think if you do that, you will find a dating life like we found when we were in high school, maybe when we were in college, and when we were married, that I think is honoring to God and that you will enjoy. All right? I don't know if you have questions. Ben, I don't know how you want to handle this, if they're going to break in a group or ask questions.
Yeah, we'll go to small group, but if anybody has any questions.
I got one more comment about dating. We talked about how we did things in groups, which is really smart. For the obvious, like you're not going to put yourself in situations that you shouldn't be in. But the second thing is when you are in a group of people, let's say you're with your boyfriend, like all your boyfriends, girls or whatever, group of friends, they are more themselves. So remember how we talked about putting your best foot forward and they're trying to snag you? So sometimes they will act in a way that's not really them. The only reason they're acting that way is to get you as a boyfriend, girlfriend. But when they're with their group of friends and you can see how they're interacting with them, sometimes things come out that maybe weren't coming out with just you two. And so it's very interesting. You can get a better feel for the kind of person that they really are when they're around their friends. It's another perspective.
How long did you wait before you met each other? Like other people?
Oh, well, I had just not dated a ton. Like, I dated a few guys, but then I was with this guy for 3.5 years, all through high school, and then, yeah, and I was into my freshman year of college when, yeah, that was my goal. Go 1 year, go home, get married, but that didn't work.
I dated,
He dated,
that,
he was the biggest flirt I've ever.
I was
So
friendly.
when we
I
met,
was friendly.
my roommate was like, why do you date that guy? And I was like, I will never date him if he's the last person on earth. And she was like, why? And I'm like, he's never serious, and he's the biggest flirt I've ever met.
Okay, so
Anyone
answer
in
your
my
question.
life.
Okay,
So he dated a lot. Everyone. Yes, he did. Yeah, yeah.
I dated a few.
Not like dating, only dated.
Yeah, I dated, so I dated a little bit. I dated some in high school, but not a lot. But I wasn't a Christian, so here's my issue. I wasn't a Christian until I was a senior in high school. So I accepted Christ when I was January of my senior year. So I came to Christ, and then my life just got blown up, honestly, in a very positive way. I'm like, what in the world? Jesus, oh my goodness. And that did radically change my life. Because I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and this whole thing about purity and Jesus, I had no idea what that was doing to me. So my things changed in my priorities. I dated quite a bit, but honestly, in college, it was just about fun for me. And I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean I was just trying to get to know some of the people. And so I was trying to get to know some of the people. I was being friendly.
That's what he said. It wasn't flirt.
I was friendly. So she dated a few times, but really dated one guy for 3 years. And I dated a girl in high school for about a year, but I dated in college for about 6 months before I met Michelle. That was about it. Good question. Other questions? That was nice. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Other questions? Groups, you said, Ben?
Yeah, what was some others?
Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching.